Hi, this is Marina from Frocks Frolics, and we're going to do some awesome doll clothes. Before we start sewing, we need to understand our pattern, and that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to explain exactly what you can do with this wonderful pattern, and you can see blended in what it looks like when you make it for your girl. Here we're going to do the doll version, and on this version here we've got a fully lined doll dress. What we do have is Velcro at the back, but for this version you could actually put in buttonholes or cam snaps as well. We're having the version where we put in the pin tucks here on this side, that's a full version, and also a gathered skirt. Now for the quick dolly version, we have an unlined bodice. We again have a Velcro fastening here, so that's quite easy to do. And then we have got a flat yoke, and instead of those pin tucks, I've just put lace on, and we're going to do a little bit of embroidery on that lace as well, so you can learn that too. There's another difference between the skirts. You can see that on the full version I've just hemmed it properly, and on here I've done a recessed hem, and you can of course go into any video you like. So if you want to do the recessed hem on this dress, you can do that. That just means that you got the hem kind of pushed up a bit. It doesn't change the length because the lace makes it longer, so that's a really nice little thing to do, and you have got both patterns for it. To make this pattern, I have used the American doll. You can of course use any doll that's 18 inches or 50 centimeters tall. That's absolutely fine. It will fit them, and you also got the size measurements in your instructions. So when you buy the pattern, let's have a quick look at what you get. Obviously you got a content page, so there we have the sewing the miniature full version, and then we've got the sewing the quick dolls version, and the quick dolls version is this one, and then the sewing the miniature full dress is this one. We also explain how to print out the pattern. It's really quite easy. Just make sure you print it out at 100%. I expect that some of you that want to sew these dolls patterns are not experienced sewers, so these instructions are really quite in depth and slow. And then you have a page which is called Before You Start, which will explain what to do first and what the instructions are, etc. And then just like I do with the pattern for the girl's dress, you get your pattern explained, and what that is every single pattern piece has an explanation. So I tell you exactly how many to cut, if they have to be cut mirror image or just two of them or on the fold, and all that good stuff. So you've got 2 pages for that. Then you have got a page which tells you how much fabric you need. This is much less complicated than when you're making it for a little girl, which I think is great. So we've got here that you need 45 centimeters for the flat yoke dress, that's that, or 56 centimeters for this one. Of course you can just use your scraps and just, use different fabrics for the various parts of the dress. So you could make the yoke in a different fabric to the skirt, and that's completely up to you. You need Velcro 12 centimeters, we need thread, 1 reel, and maybe a fat quarter for the lining if you want to do that. And I've also added the measurements for the doll. So if you have a different doll, you might want to go and measure it. The torso circumference is 11 inches. That's just around this area here. Or 28 centimeters, and then the torso length here from the shoulder down to where the waist is 10 centimeters or 4 inches, and the waist is 27 centimeters or 10.6 inches. So you can measure your doll you've got if you're not quite sure that it's going to work. Then you've got 2 pages with layout plans. And the first one is for the lined dress. That is this one, which is practically like the original dress. Very, very similar. I've jumped some steps to make it a little bit easier, but basically if you can sew this, you can sew the girl's dress. which then has a load more detail and variation in it. But if you're a starter sewer and you want to know how do I make a dress, then this is absolutely perfect for you. So you got the layout plan for that number one, if you wanted to do it with a flat waist, because you can do both, or with a gathered yoke, and that changes how much fabric you need and what you need to cut for that. Of course, the top part will stay the same. The next page is the layout plan for the Isabella Unlined, which is that one there. You'll see that the biggest difference here is really that when it's gathered, you have two pieces of fabric to cut out, and what we'll do is on the fold they need to be 1.20 meters in width to cut this lovely skirt here. But you can also just cut across the whole width to 140 if that's what you want. Like you can see it here, you can cut all the way over. On this example, for example, I fold in both sides, so you get a selvage here and a fold here and here, so you have two folds, so it's easier to cut out. When you're using the dress with a gathered yoke here, you need way more gathers on the bottom, obviously, because this is gathered, that's a circle, so it increases exponentially. So what you want to do then is have more fabric. So we're cutting on the fold 1.20 meters twice, or 24 inches, and then one of these, this one, you can just cut through the fold, so you get two pieces, because on the very simple version here, you always close the back last. It makes it much easier to make the dress, and therefore you need that cut here, and you can't have it on the fold. And then you get the instructions, which are similar but not the same as the main dress. That has a lot more information there. Here I've kept it very simple, didn't give you too many options, because I think that if you're a beginner, that's not really what you want. It just complicates things. And then we go on to the quick Isabella, and again you have the full instructions for that, every single step explained. And then here at the bottom, I've also got other patterns that are going to come out to go with this collection, so you can get very excited about those. So that is your ebook, which is very helpful. Once you watch the instructions here once, you probably might not want to go and watch the whole lot over and over. So I know some people do it, they love it, but you don't have to do that. The first thing to do is to measure the test square to make sure that you have the right measurements, and that's 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch in every direction. It's a square, and once you have got that, you know I'm good. You can always check with Frocks and Frolics patterns whether you've got all the pieces and what pieces there are by looking at the last page where you get all of them assembled. This is particularly important if one of the pattern pieces doesn't fit on, because in that case you can then put two pieces together to make the one, and they will have attachment lines on them. That is even the case for some of my patterns for the dolls dresses, but not for this one. But I want to stick with the same system that you're used to. So last page gives you all your pattern pieces in one. And your first step now is to cut out all those pattern pieces exactly as they are, and then we're going to have a look at them. And we start with your pattern piece for the skirt. All you have to do is extend your skirt to whatever it says on here. It's actually 1.2 meters, so it's mostly what these fabrics come in width anyway. If you have 1.40 meters and you want to make this dress here, that's the unlined version, and you extend that skirt part to 140, that's fine if you've got enough fabric, but 120 is perfectly adequate for that. And then for this dress where you gather the yoke, you need of course much more fabric, because exponentially this yoke will get bigger. It's a circle, and so we need more in this part. So we're cutting out this piece here 120 wide twice, and we're cutting both of those on the fold. And because this dress here works with an overlap of the yoke, and they sit on top of each other like that, that is why this whole thing is not open here. It doesn't have to be open there. So you can cut those on the fold. Whereas on this dress, the back is worked slightly different. If you want to have a look at this, you can see it. You can see the seam going all the way down here, which means when we open this up, you know, I do the seam last. I put the Velcro on and everything, and then I sew together. And so what I'm going to do with this one here, you only need to cut it once all the way across the fabric. We've got the layout plan here for that. So if we wanted this skirt on the unlined one here, then we'll cut it twice. But this time we'll cut it on the fold, but one of them we snip through the center back so that we get two pieces for the back and one on the fold for the front. Whereas on the full-on dress, which is lined and where it overlaps at the back, like I showed you, you can cut them on the fold both and just use them like that. And that works really well as well. So there we go. That's a skirt. And then we have got a yoke with it. And the front yoke here is cut on the fold. So we don't end up with a seam here. It's not what we want. So we'll cut that on the fold. And then for the back yoke, we need to have it twice, mirror image like that. And because we are not going to have that overlap at the back of the dress, we are going to fold this over, and it says cut here for the unlined quick doll version, and it's a blue one. So if you're making unlined, you need to cut along the blue line for this, and also the bodice, then that's the one you want to cut. And you also have got a marking here on your pattern piece which says for the plain yoke cut here and the gathered yoke cut here. So you can see for the plain yoke you need less, and I would recommend that you just fold this over so that if you are making this again and you want the other skirt, you don't need to cut it again. You can just go, oh okay, this time I'm doing it different, I'm doing it like this. Okay, so that is your skirt, and you have those two variations. So now let's have a look at the front. And here we've got the lining and the front piece, and then we've got facings. Okay, so you don't need the facings when you're using the lining. Okay, so you only need one or the other. Lined version, you need lining. Unlined version, you need facings. And here we've got the front piece for your pin tags, and I would recommend that you mark just the center of the pin tag, because that is what will be folded over on the iron and ironed in. And then we're just going to top stitch here with a centimeter seam allowance, and that will give you your pin tag. When the pin tags are put in, this piece will be exactly the same size as the lining. Okay, it'll reduce throughout the middle to get this. All right, so here you can see that those are the pin tacks right there, and then this piece is exactly that size. Okay, so just for everyone that's never done this before, I hope that is a helpful comment. If you want to make it unlined, you don't need this pattern piece here. You can put that away. You can just simply cut this pattern piece, and then we're going to use the facings with it for the front and the back. This is the front facing to make this nice and clean. And then we've also got the trim which goes on the front here, so you can leave that off if you like, but that will also fit exactly on here quite neatly. And CF stands for center front. If you wanted to mark that on all your fabric pieces you've cut out, then that will be quite helpful. Now let's have a little look at the back. We've got, put this front piece away, back piece, same applies here. If you are using the lined dress like this, then you do not need the facing. If you're using the unlined version, you don't need the lining. Okay, so when we're putting the lining and the upper material together for the lined version, they'll be joined here, and then the seam will simply roll back to fit on there. And you get basically an integrated facing here. And that is then really helpful when you want to put in buttonholes or cam snaps. It's really good practice to make this dress if you want to learn how to sew a dress. But if you don't want to do that, you want to just do a quick doll version, or you've never done sewing before, then I think, yeah, make the doll version first. So in that case, you don't need the lining, so you can put it to the side. What you do need to do is to fold over along the blue dash line so that you get to where it says cut here for the Android doll version, so that you can make this version there. And then the facing will just go on top of that and you're done. It's actually very few pieces. Now, one piece I forgot to show you here, and I must show you that as well, and that is the sleeve. And this sleeve is just going to be gathered along the top to fit into the dress. But what you must make sure is that on all your pieces you mark where the sleeve starts and where it ends. So that point is marked on the front piece and on the back piece, and when you cut out, that's what you need to mark, so that you don't have to measure later and say, oh, I don't know where that goes, you know, so that you have got those points all ready to go. And that's it basically for the pattern. I hope that you really enjoy this. You have got 2 videos to go on to now. One of them is the unlined version, and one of them is the lined version. I kept it separate for you to make sure that this goes swimmingly. So without further ado, I think we need to make a dress now. See you there.